Madam President, next time you're checking out at your local grocery or convenience store, take a look around. There's a good chance you'll see a kiosk marked with the letter B with two vertical lines running through it. Looks like a form of a dollar sign. It's the symbol for Bitcoin. And what you're looking at is a Bitcoin ATM. Take a closer look. Is somebody using the machine? Are they on their phone while they're using the machine? Do they seem stressed? If so, they might just be one of the growing number of victims of Bitcoin ATM fraud. These scams, which frequently target elderly Americans, start with a phone call. A criminal calls his target, claims he's from their bank, the IRS, some federal agency. He tells his victim that their bank account has been hacked or that they are late paying their taxes, and explains that they need to go to their bank immediately and take out money, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars. He directs his victim to a local business that hosts a Bitcoin ATM. He might even order them an Uber driver to pick them up. From there, he walks them through step by step how to deposit their money into the machine, how to use it to buy Bitcoin, and how to transfer the Bitcoin to a digital wallet controlled by the criminal himself. In a matter of minutes, the money is gone, lost to the anonymity and irreversibility inherent to cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. Bitcoin ATM scams like these have exploded in recent years. According to the data released by the Federal Trade Commission, the amount consumers report losing in this form of fraud increased tenfold, nearly tenfold, between 2020 and 2023, from $12 million to $114 million. In the first half of this year alone, victims lost a staggering $65 million. A disproportionate number of these victims were elderly Americans. In 2023, the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center received nearly 2,700 Bitcoin ATM fraud complaints from individuals aged 60 and older, more than all other age groups combined. Earlier this summer, the Illinois Times reported that a small business owner in my hometown of Springfield, Illinois, stepped in after he witnessed a Bitcoin ATM in his store repeatedly being used by elderly individuals to deposit large sums of money at the urging of fraudsters. He explained to Illinois Times, 100% of the time that we saw somebody at the machine, they were being scammed. So I was like, this machine has to go. I'm not going to be part of this. He wisely removed the Bitcoin ATM from his store. In Texas, a Good Samaritan called 911 after she, in her words, noticed an elderly lady feeding thousands of dollars into the cryptocurrency machine at the urging of a criminal. She tried to stop the victim from feeding more and more of her money into the machine, but was unsuccessful. Only when the responding officer arrived and intervened did the victim finally understand that she had been scammed. Scenarios like these are playing out all across America. While we should applaud bystanders who step in and stop or at least limit the damage caused by these criminals, relying on Good Samaritans is not a solution to this growing problem. That's why I led 6 of my colleagues in sending letters to the 10 largest Bitcoin ATM operators this last September. We wanted to understand what they were doing, if anything, to prevent fraudulent use of their machines. The responses we received were not reassuring. While some safeguards, such as warning screens and ID checks, were employed by all responding companies, other common sense measures like analyzing transactions and digital wallets to identify and stop fraud were not. Other best practices, such as setting maximum transaction sizes, were left to the vagaries of state laws, leaving too many Americans at risk in too many states. That simply isn't good enough. A company should meet certain specific anti-fraud measures before dropping one of their machines into our communities. That's why I'm going to introduce legislation in the next few weeks that establishes a federal anti-fraud baseline for Bitcoin ATMs. As I start to develop this bill, there are a few things that strike me as absolutely necessary. First, Bitcoin ATMs should have daily transaction limits, particularly for new customers. As these machines are increasingly used to perpetrate fraud, we should limit potential losses. Second, any transaction initiated by a new customer should be held for some reasonable period of time before it's processed. This will allow new customers to cancel their transactions, particularly if they learn that they've been victims of fraud. Minnesota and Connecticut recently passed legislation requiring Bitcoin ATM operators to wait 72 hours before processing a new customer's transaction. That seems like a good place to start. Third, Bitcoin ATM operators should be required to use analytics to screen for fraudulent or otherwise illicit transactions. Many Bitcoin ATM operators already employ this technology. There's no reason it shouldn't be used across the board. Fourth, Bitcoin ATMs should be required to provide transaction receipts that include transaction hashes. This will allow law enforcement to more easily trace the transaction, collect evidence of the crime, maybe even recover stolen funds. These are a few of the pillars this legislation will include. I plan to work with stakeholders to make this best bill possible. That includes state attorneys general and organizations like AARP, who have been real leaders on this issue. It also includes Bitcoin ATM operators. In their responses to my letters, many of these companies offered to work with Congress to craft appropriate regulations for the industry. I hope they will come to the table in good faith. I'm not going to stand idly by while thousands of Americans, particularly elderly Americans, are ripped off in Bitcoin ATM scams. My bill will address this problem before it spirals out of control.